and we're gonna start at the very beginning, guys. Oh, that's okay, Strobex. Appreciate that. Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that you're considering renewing the sub. I really appreciate that. So on that note of subs, on Monday, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, on the 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a sub simul. So you can see upcoming events using the upcoming keyword. So in the chat, you'll see Monday, December 28th, a sub simul, 7 p.m. Okay, let me adjust. I just adjusted the sound. Hopefully, is that better? Okay, let's try that now. Just hold on here, guys. It doesn't seem to be playing. Okay. Musical Math redeemed. Lose the glasses. Well, okay. I guess we'll have to not use the glasses for a bit, because Musical Math redeemed some points. Okay, so as I was saying, Monday, December 28th, we are going to have a sub simul at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you are a sub and you would like to participate, please do join. This will be my first ever simul, and should be a lot of fun. So hope you can make it out to the simul. And you'll also see that Tuesday, December 22nd at, no, that's actually incorrect. That should say 7 p.m. Eastern. I've got a bullet match with Bullet Mercenary. So that should be a lot of fun. It should be interesting, because I'm okay at Bullet, but Bullet Mercenary, he is a national master from Canada with a 2400 bullet rating. My bullet rating, I think, is about 2200. So I'm okay, but he's definitely the favorite. So hopefully you guys can come check that out as well and cheer us on. Strobeck says, if you do predictions for that, you're going with him. I think that would be a very good prediction. Musical Math, tonight we are not playing the viewers, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to play. We are doing beginner basics. All right, so let's stop the babbling and let's actually start. So we are starting at the very first, guys. I'm going to assume that we do not know how to move the pieces at all, and that's going to be the focus of tonight's stream. So hopefully there are those in the chat that would like to learn how the pieces move. So, Musical Math, rename that opening to Yo Man. All right, Musical Math. If we were playing a game, I would rename the opening to Yo Man. Okay, so here we go. We have set up on the board. We only have pawns. So this is how I like to teach people how to learn. We first learn how to use the pawns, and then we slowly add the other pieces. So for a pawn, you can move up one. So like so. So let's just pretend here. Oops, what happened there? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still in board setup mode. Just a second here. Just a second here, guys. There should be, yeah, load. There we go. Okay, so with a pawn, you can move up one. And let's just say that these moves were played. And when you get to this position, the pawns can no longer move forward. So this pawn is blocking the black pawn from advancing further. The black pawn is preventing the white pawn from advancing further. Now there is a special rule in chess. This is actually how chess first started. You would only be able to move your pawns one square at a time. But they modified the rules so that if your pawns are on the home squares, so that would be this rank or this rank for white and black. So from left to right, these are called ranks. And from up and down, these are called files. So if your pawns are on the second rank for white, or your pawns are on the 7th rank for black, you can actually move a pawn twice. So 2 squares. And you don't have to, you just have that option. So for example, if black did not want to move it twice, he or she could do that. And then if white wanted to move this pawn again, they can only move it once. So moving 2 squares only is available at the starting square for your pawns. Okay, so the last thing that we need to learn is how do pawns attack each other. So we've learned how they move and that they block each other, but how do they attack each other? Well, that happens diagonally. So if we were to say play this move and black were to play this move, so both sides moving the pawns up 2 squares, well, now the pawns are attacking each other. So the pawns attack each other on the diagonals. So if it was white's turn here, white could take the pawn by moving diagonally and moving onto that square, and the black pawn comes off the board. And so white in this position has just won a pawn. If black plays this move next, white has the option of taking, moving forward, protecting, or just leaving the pawn there. So let's say white wanted to take, we would have take, but now in this instance, black can take right back. Okay, so that is how we move the pawns. Now, I thought what we could do in the chat, if we have enough people, we could play in this position with the goal being for white trying to get a pawn on the last rank, so any of these squares, and if you're black, you're trying to get a pawn on one of these squares. So how about I play white and the chat can play black. So for white, I am going to start moving this pawn up twice. So as the chat, where would you like to move your pawns? And which pawn would you like to move? So you'll notice below the board, we have letters. So this is called the A pawn because there's a letter A on this file. So this is called the A file. Then we have the B file. And then the C file. D file, E file, and so on and so forth. So if you're black and you want to move this pawn, you would tell me, I want to move the C pawn 1 square. Or I want to move the C pawn 2 squares. Okay, so what pawn do you guys want to move as black, and how many squares do you want to move it? So let me know in the chat, guys. Type in the chat your vote. There are no wrong answers. So type in the chat which pawn you want to move. So I will wait a minute or two to see which pawn you guys would like to move. So you got 8 choices. Which out of the 8 pawns would you like to move as black? Asahawk. Hello, Asahawk. Welcome to the stream. E and D to secure the precious center. Okay. So Asahawk is saying that D and E would be good. Ramiro is saying the D pawn. So it looks like we've got 2 votes for the D pawn. And we've got 2 votes for the D pawn to move up 2 squares. Okay, so let's do that. Now Asahawk has talked about the center. We will get to that at some point, talking about the center. But for now, we're going to move up twice. Okay. So I will move up just 1 with my E pawn. So this is the E pawn on the E file. I decided to just move up once. I'm protecting my pawn here on the F file, and I'm also looking at the D4 square, so if black ever moves the pawn on that square, I have the option to take. Okay, so which pawn would you guys like to move next? So remember, you guys are playing black. And don't be shy, there's no wrong answers. This is the beginner focused stream, guys. I had some people last night on the stream saying that they were interested in such a session. So if you are one of those people, by all means, please do participate. Okay, we have 1 vote. Ramiro says C pawn to the 5 square. So Ramiro is saying C pawn to the 5 square. So we've got the C file right here. And, whoops, how come that didn't draw? We've got the C file, and Ramiro is also specifying the rank. So this is known as the 5th rank. If this will actually draw for me. Come on now. There we go. So that is known as the 5th rank. Ramiro is saying the C pawn, so Ramiro wants to move this pawn to C5. Any other takers? Are we happy with C5? What do you guys think? Any other votes for C5, or is there another move? So we got one vote for c5. Any other votes? Chime in, guys. Yay or nay for c5? Okay, I guess we will go with c5. Now, what will I do? I could move my d-pawn 1 square. I could move my d-pawn 2 squares. I think I will move it twice. So by moving it twice, it blocks this pawn from advancing any further. And as we learned, pawns attack each other diagonally. So we are attacking the pawn on c5. All right. So now what does black play? What do you guys want to play as black? Remember, we are playing only with the pawns. The goal, try to get a pawn on the last rank. So for me, I want to get a pawn on any of these squares. For black, you guys want to get a pawn on one of these squares. So what move do you guys want to play next? And while you guys are considering that move, I want to update my MooBot. So just bear with me while I update MooBot. Okay, so what do you think, guys? I have just played my pawn up twice, the D pawn. This was my last move. What do you guys want to play here? Hello, Evie Love. You make them play upside down. What a meanie. That's actually true, don't I? I should reverse the board. Although it depends. I don't know. Some people like always having white at the bottom. All right, so I just played d4. What would you guys like to play? Remember, this is beginner focused. We are learning how to move the pawns. So don't be shy. Which pawn would you like to move now? You've got 8 choices. Okay, while you guys ponder that, I am trying to update my MooBot. Come on, MooBot. What do you guys think? Which pawn would you like to move next? Okay, which one do I want to update? Ah, yes, this one. All right, so name a pawn, guys, that you would like to move. You've got 8 options: A pawn, B pawn, C pawn. Which one would you like to try? Okay, I've successfully updated my MooBot, so I'm happy. Okay. All right, so Ramiro is making a suggestion. So Ramiro is saying the B pawn, let's move it up one. So Ramiro is saying B6. So this is the B pawn, and the square in front of it is the 6th. As you can see right here, there's a 6. So B pawn up here. The benefits of that is that it supports the pawn on C5. So if I were to take, black has the option to take back. So that's the current suggestion. Any other takers? Anybody else want to vote for B6, or is there another vote? Yay or nay on E6, guys? I don't hear any objections to B6. All right, let's go with B6. Hey, KLM 1978. Welcome to the stream. Just jumping in now from Newfoundland. Welcome. Thanks for joining. So we are doing beginner basics, and we're going right to the start, learning how to move the pawns. So Kim, or KLM, pardon me, if you need a refresher, the pawns can move up one at a time, except when they're on the home squares. So these are the home squares for white. Hello, Phoenix Shade. And these are the home squares for black. So when you have a pawn on the home squares for your color, you can actually move up twice. So I have the option to move any of these highlighted pawns 2 squares. Yeah, not a problem, Phoenix Shade. Not a problem. I'm trying to see if there's interest in having beginner sessions. I had some interest last night on the stream, so we're going to give it a try. Okay, so the other thing to know is that this pawn here is currently blocking the pawn in front of it. So this black pawn cannot advance anymore. And similarly, this white pawn cannot advance forward. Thanks, Phoenix Shade. Thanks for popping by. And do check out the upcoming events, as MooBot is currently saying. So December 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm having a bullet match versus Bullet Mercenary. And then next Monday, I'm playing all my subs that show up. We're going to play a simul. So do show up. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, so the other thing, KLM, that you need to be aware of is that pawns attack each other on diagonals. Awesome, Phoenix Shade. I hope you can play. It'd be great. We'd love to have you. So in this position, white can actually move this pawn diagonally by taking the C pawn. And likewise, black would have the option to take back. So the last move that black played was this pawn up to reinforce the c pawn. So let's actually take, and I suspect that you would want to take back. However, I'm never assuming. So the obvious recapture would be one of the suggested moves. Are there any objections to this move? Or are we okay with playing that move? Any objections for black taking the pawn back? What do you guys think? Oh, KLM, it's Kelly. Hello, Kelly. Glad you could join the stream. So what do you guys think? Would you lose momentum if you did not take the pawn back? Well, the goal here, because we're learning how to move the pawns, the goal here in this game is I want to get one of my pawns on the last rank. Black wants to get one of their pawns on the back rank. So if black does not take this pawn back, I have a big threat. The big threat is moving the pawn up. And that means this pawn will not be stopped. Because once I get to this square, there's no pawns on these two squares that can stop it from continuing on to the final destination. So I think you guys would want to take for that reason. All right, so now let's see what I'm going to do. Okay, I am going to move the pawn up 1. So when you're on the home square, you have the option to go 2, but you still can go up just 1. So I've chosen just to go up 1. So my pawn here is now looking at these two squares, protecting those two squares. So where would you like to move next? It's black to move. Just name a pawn and name how many squares up you would like to move. So welcome everybody. This is the Beginner Basics stream. We are learning how to move the pawns up. How to move the pawns. We're starting at the very beginning. Assuming that we do not know how to play chess. So this is absolutely beginner focused. So please do participate. There are no wrong answers. We are here to learn. So which pawn would you guys like to move? Black to play. There are 7 pawns left for black. Just name one of the letters. So you'll see at the bottom of the board we have letters. We have the letter A starting here, all the way to H. So if you wanted to move, let's say this pawn, you would say, I want to move the A pawn 1 square, or I want to move the A pawn 2 squares. Hey, it's Habib. How you doing, Habib? Good to see you. Habib is a loyal viewer and a generous subscriber. Good to see you, Habib. Okay, Habib is saying, let's move the F pawn up 1. Okay, so the F pawn would look at these two squares because pawns, they attack diagonally, remember? So that is the current suggestion. KLM is saying the black one on A, 2 squares. So the black pawn on A would be this one, going up 2 squares. That is also a possibility. So these are the 2 moves that are being suggested. Who wants to vote for either of those 2 moves? Or if you have a third suggestion, please type in the chat. Otherwise, we are going to have to choose one of these 2 moves. So F pawn up 1 or A pawn up 2. What do you guys think? Which pawn, which one of those 2, or maybe the other one of the other pawns would you like to move? So Ramiro, I'm going with KLM. A pawn up twice seems good to prevent B4. Okay, so the Ramiro knows the annotations in chess. So Ramiro is saying move the A pawn up 2 squares. So that would mean the A pawn is moving to the 5th rank because you see a 5. This is known as the 5th rank. And Ramiro is saying once we get the pawn here, it helps reinforce this square. So if white wanted to play this pawn up here with the black pawn on A5, we've got 2 guys covering this and white only has 1 guy. So we've got 2 votes for A5. Let's go with the A pawn moving up twice. So that was indeed what I wanted to do. And you guys stopped it. Good job. Good job. Because if I do this now, you guys can take twice and you would be up a pawn. Hello, Muzz Gaming 519. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. We are learning the very basics here. So we are first learning how to move the pawns. So the pawns can move up 1 square at a time. And once they get to a square, so let's just say I moved my A pawn up 2 squares. If it's on this square, then black's pawn is now stopped from moving forward. Likewise, when white's pawn is here, the white pawn can no longer move forward. They stop each other. However, pawns can attack sideways. So it's my turn right now. If I were to move this pawn up to here, well, black has 2 pawns that they could take this pawn with. So the pawns move forward or straight, except when there is an enemy piece on the diagonals. Then they can take that piece and move that to that square. Now the other thing you'll notice I'm saying that we can move this up too. When the pawns are on the home squares, so these 4 pawns are on the starting squares or the home squares, there is a special rule in chess. You can actually move up 2 squares the first time. So I actually started the game by moving this pawn up twice. But after that, this pawn can only move up 1 square at a time. So either forward, or if an enemy pawn goes on the diagonals, then it could go diagonally. So likewise, black can move any of these 4 pawns 2 squares if they want, because that is the home squares for those black pawns. Okay, so let's see. I am going to move my pawn up 1. So you'll notice I have the option here. I don't have to move it up twice. I could move it up twice in one move if I wanted to, but in this case, I decided just to move it up once. Alright guys, this is great. Really appreciate you guys participating. So, what move would you like to play next? And remember, we are here to learn, so there are no wrong answers. So do not be shy. Offer a suggestion. So the way to offer a suggestion, if you don't know the annotations in chess, we will get to it. But you'll notice at the bottom, we've got letters. So we've got A, B, C, all the way to H. So this would be known as the A pawn because it's on the A file. So the arrow is representing a file. So a column in chess we call files. So if you wanted to move the A pawn, you would say, hey Aaron, I want to move the A pawn 1 square up. So that is what we would suggest. If you wanted to move the G pawn up 1, that would correspond to this one, because this is the G file right here. That's the G file. So that would mean this pawn can go up 1 or 2, depending on which one you choose. So yes, it is black's turn. So black to move. Not a problem, Muzz Gaming. Black to move. What would black like to play? So you have some choices here. There's 7 pawns left for black. And the goal when we're only playing with pawns, I am trying to get one of my pawns to the last rank. So this is the 8th rank for white. Black is trying to get a pawn on the 1st rank. So we have a 1 here. So side by side, we call these ranks from left to right. And up and down, or the columns, we call them files. So that's the that's the terminology that we use in chess. Okay, so which pawn are we moving next for black, guys? While you guys ponder that, I have to look at MooBot again. MooBot has been announcing our upcoming events a little too regularly. So I'm just wondering why. Okay, so which pawn would you guys like to move? Hello, Lima Dado. Lima Dado says A4 to stop B4. So that's the A pawn. The A pawn up 1. And so that would be the 4th square because we have a number 4 here. So Limadado says A to 4. So that means the A pawn goes up 1. Okay. Any other suggestions? That is the first suggestion. Anybody agree with that suggestion, or are there other moves we want to consider? What do you guys think? So KLM agrees. Muzz Gaming says F pawn to 5. So F pawn to 5, which would be here. So that would prevent this pawn from moving any further. Okay. So we have 2 votes for A4. We've got 1 vote for F5. Any other? Oh, I added a default timer. That's probably why MooBot's all messed up. Any other takers? Any other suggestions? And do bear with me. I just have to fix my MooBot. Default timer. Yeah, that's not what I want. I didn't want a default timer. So let's delete the default timer. There we go. Okay. So KLM is saying that they also looked at F5 too. Okay. Well, we've got 2 votes for A pawn up, so let's go with that. You guys decided there. Now we will come back to this position and we will learn a special rule in chess, but for now, for those who know en passant, you guys are obviously experienced with chess, but we will come back and we will learn that concept. Hello, Will Wolf. Which way does the queen move? Well, we don't have the queen on the board. We're just looking at pawns at the moment. But yes, I realize you're being funny. All right, so what do I want to play? Let's move my G pawn up twice. So where would you guys like to move next? So remember, the A pawn can now no longer go forward because it's blocked by my A pawn. So the A pawn could take if there's a pawn that comes to this square. Otherwise, this pawn is stuck and this pawn is stuck. Ah, very good, Will Wolf. Very good. Okay, so what pawn do you guys want to move? Name the pawn and also name how many squares you want to move it up. So name the squares. Will Wolf says, Simon Williams says, push Harry. So Harry corresponds to the H pawn, because the H pawn starts with the letter A, and Simon Williams is a grandmaster, and he likes to name his H-pawn Harry. So you've got a choice of pushing Harry up one pawn, or one square, pardon me, or you can move it up 2 squares. KLM says C file 1 square, so that would be this one here, that's the C pawn. So up 1 square would be here, or F file up 1 square. So we've got 3 suggestions thus far. I'm assuming that the H-pawn would only move up once. Any other suggestions? Anybody want to vote for one of those 3 pawn moves? What do you guys think? We are learning how to move the pawns, guys. Starting at the very beginning. This is beginner basics. Muzz Gaming says, I vote F6. So that's this pawn up 1 square. Okay. Any other takers? Any other votes? So going once for F6. Going twice for F6. All right, Ramiro says C pawn up 1. All right, so we've got a tie. We've got C pawn up 1 or the F pawn up 1. Who's going to break the tie? So which pawn do we want to move? Don't be shy, guys. If you are an absolute beginner, then you are perfect for participating. This is the stream for you guys. We are here to learn. So Lima Dado says F6. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for the F pawn up 1. Let's go with that. So F pawn goes up 1. All right. I am now going to move. Let's see now. Do I know what I'm going to move? I don't know if I know what I'm going to move. What am I going to move? All right, let's move the H pawn up 2 squares. Okay, guys, what are you guys going to play? Which pawn would you like to move now? Sec here, guys. I will. So we've got 2 votes for E pawn up twice. So up once would be E6. So this is the E pawn because this is the E file. And 6 would be this square because the number 6 is this row or rank, as we say in chess. But we're actually suggesting to move the pawn up twice to the E5 square. So we have 3 people that are saying e5. So that is a strong support for e5. So let us play e5. So now with this move, I have the option of taking the e-pawn or pushing it up 1. Okay. So I am going to play the h5 pawn up 1. That is my move. Okay. What would you guys like to do? Black to move. We are learning how to move the pawns, guys. So Lima Dado has said D pawn to 4. So this is the D pawn, and 4 is the suggestion. Okay. So anytime we move our pawn where it could be attacked diagonally, so this pawn, if going to that square, I have the option to take with either my C pawn or this guy, my E pawn. So D4, what you have to calculate is, do you have enough defenders? So black actually has 2 defenders on this square. How many attackers does white have? White has these 2. And so that would lead to an even trade. So if you can visualize that, moving the pawn up, we would have takes, 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 and takes. So both sides would gain 2 pawns. Just a quick way to calculate that. You just count the number of attackers versus defenders. All right, Ramiro has said D4 or E pawn takes this guy, the F pawn. Okay, so we've got this suggestion. That's one move. This is another suggestion. Muzz Gaming has said H pawn to 6. H6. Okay. So those are 3 really good suggestions. And to be quite honest with you, looking at the board, I think they are all viable. So I don't think you guys would be wrong with any of those choices. I think those are all 3 very good moves. Okay, so we have 3 people that have mentioned D4. So let's look at D4. Okay, so I am going to take with the C pawn. So I took with the C pawn, because remember, pawns, they attack on the diagonals. So they move straight, but they attack on the diagonals, which allows them to essentially move diagonally. Only when there's a piece there. Hey, Leo Cesarini, 1993. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so which move would you guys like to play now? I have just taken your pawn on D4. So my last move was pawn takes your pawn on d4. So what does black want to do here? KLM says black's E takes white's D. So we've got E pawn takes D. Any other votes for that? Muzz Gaming says take with the C pawn. So we've got a vote for the E pawn. We've also got a vote for the E pawn. So one vote to take with this pawn. Another vote to take with that pawn. Any other suggestions? Anybody else want to vote for a move? Anybody else want to move the E pawn? Or do they want to move the C pawn? Ramiro says, I vote for the E pawn as well. So we've got 2 votes for the E. So that highlighted pawn is the E pawn. So Ramiro says, I vote for that one. So we've got 2 votes for that. Any other votes? Remember guys, if you do not know how to play chess, this is why we're having the stream. We are starting from the get-go. We are learning how to move the pieces. And we're starting with learning to move the pawns. So do participate in the chat if you can. There are no wrong answers. Okay, so we've got Lima Dado is saying take with C. So we've got 2 votes for C. And now Muzz Gaming is also saying take with C. Alright, we've got 2 for C, 2 for E. Honestly, I don't think it makes a difference. Muzz Gaming says change it to E. Okay, so we've got 3 for E. Let's go with the E pawn. Alright. I am going to move forward. Now remember, the goal here is to get our pawn to the final rank. So I am trying to get my pawn to one of these squares. You guys are trying to get one of your pawns to these squares. So which pawn would you like to move now, guys? So Muzz Gaming says push the D pawn. Move ahead with the D pawn. Okay. KLM says black D 1 square. So that's another vote for the D pawn. Okay, I think that's a reasonable move. So D pawn goes up. I'm going to move my guy up. So Muzz Gaming has already chimed in and says we want to take. Okay. Any other votes? You guys want to take, or is there another move you would prefer to play? Don't be shy. Metal Eagle, what's up, Metal Eagle? Hey, shout out to Metal Eagle. Check out Metal Eagle's stream, guys. He does a lot of educational stuff too. So there is his link. Check him out sometime. So Metal Eagle is saying, hey, we don't need to take that pawn. We can just move our D pawn up 1. So we've got 2 votes for the D. So let's go with that. So I am going to take your F pawn. Now what do you guys want to play? So yes, of course, Muzz Gaming, you want to move up 1. So in a real game of chess, when you get to the end, you get to choose what to replace the pawn with. So your pawn actually promotes to a different piece. So in this instance, most people would promote that to a queen. But we're only playing with the pawns here, so we have said the goal is to just get your pawn to the last rank. And so here, that means black is victorious. Nice job, guys. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Very nice. Hey! Okay. Now let's go back. Let's go back. I do want to show a potential move that I could have played. Okay, so back here, you guys decided to move the A pawn up once. Now, I could have played my B pawn up 2 squares, because when you're on the home square, right, you have the choice to either move up 2 or 1. Now, it looks like I'm going to win, right? Because I've moved the pawn up twice. It's now beside your A pawn. I'm attacking your C pawn. If you would have even taken, I don't take this way, because that means your A pawn is free and you would win. But rather, I would take with this guy. And now, I'm only 4 squares away. And you cannot stop that guy. You cannot stop that guy at all. However, we have a special move in chess. And I'm sure you experienced folks in the chat know exactly what I'm talking about. When you have this situation where you have a pawn on the home square and it moves up twice and puts itself adjacent to your pawn, you can essentially pretend that I had played this move. If I had played this move, then you guys could take, right? Because pawns take diagonally. And after taking, you would now win the game by moving the pawn up twice. So had I done that, you would have taken, but I'm saying, no, I'm going to move up twice. But you can't take me. That's what I'm saying. But in fact, you can. This is a special rule in chess. It only happens when you move from the home square. This is called, yes, Muzz Gaming has it. It's called en passant. It's a French term. And it only happens when, like I said, you have a pawn on the home square that moves up twice. You can then essentially pretend it only moved up 1 and take it. So this would be a legal move. So en passant doesn't happen too often. It's not that rare, but I mean, you can go a game without